Welcome to r/slash entitled parents, where an entitled Karen calls the cops on a child because he wouldn't play with her kid. And before I start today's video, I just want to remind everyone that I have a podcast where I republish my YouTube videos in podcast form. You can listen on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're interested, check out the link in the description. And if you want to support my content, please consider going to Apple Podcasts and giving me a 5-star rating. I'm still trying to grow in the podcast world, so any support you can give me would really help me out. This happened about 12 years ago. I had just moved to a small town. My 10-year-old daughter made friends with a girl down the block. The girl didn't have many friends because her mom was drama and nobody in the neighborhood wanted to deal with her. I didn't want to punish the entitled mother's daughter for her mom's behavior, and our daughters were thick as thieves in no time. About 6 months later, my daughter comes home from their house crying. Apparently over an argument who got to play with what Barbie, the other girl called my daughter an N-word. When my daughter became quite visibly upset, the girl told my daughter something to the effect of, "It's not a bad thing, it's just what my mom says you and your mom are when you act like you're better than us. Just stop acting better and you won't be an N-word." The entitled mother called pretty quickly to apologize for her daughter talking out of turn and sharing personal family conversations. I explained to her that I was okay with the girls still being friends as long as the four of us could have a sit down and just kinda talk through why that word would be so hurtful to my kid. She agreed, but made comments that made me feel she thought I was overreacting. At the end of our conversation, I made it very clear our daughters would not be around each other until the sit-down happened. The entitled mother snaps. "This is what's wrong with you people. Always playing the race card and making a mountain out of a molehill. You aren't going to punish my daughter because you can't get over yourself." I hung up and that was the end, or so I thought. 1 month later, my daughter is at the park down the street from our house with a different neighbor and her kids. I'm cleaning my house when I got a call from that neighbor. "OMG, entitled mother is here. She's screaming that the kids can't ignore her kid at a public place. By law, they have to play with her daughter. I'm packing up and coming back, just letting you know this woman is acting nuts. Do you need me to come?" "Nah, I'm ignoring her. We'll be home in a second." 2 minutes later, I get another call and can hear her screaming in the background. "You won't freaking believe this. She called the police on your daughter. The cops are here. You need to get down here." I arrive and my daughter is shaking and crying, thinking she's done something wrong. Entitled mother is screaming like a mad woman at the top of her lungs about how my daughter being in a public place means she has to play with her daughter. "So what are you going to do about this? Are you seriously just going to let this girl stay at the park when she's refusing to play with my daughter?" The police officer says, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but as I was saying, there's no law that kids have to play with each other in public parks. If she doesn't want to play with your daughter, she doesn't have to." The entitled mother grabs at the walkie-talkie thing on the cop's shoulder. "I want to speak to your sergeant or commanding officer or whatever. Someone needs to come do their freaking job." The officer called his commanding officer. I was stunned. I asked if my daughter could sit in my car as she was visibly shaken. He said she could, which of course sent entitled mother on another rant. The commanding officer pulls up and she's screaming about how my daughter needs to get out of the car and play with her child. Commanding officer comes and the officer is trying to explain to him what's going on as she's screaming a foot away. He comes over to me and I tell him the backstory on how this all started. The commanding officer says to me, "At this point, I don't see a reason for you to have to still be here. You can take your daughter home." The entitled mother turns bright red. "This is why they're like this. Nobody holds them accountable for anything they do. She should at least get a ticket or something." I don't know what all was said after that. Me, the neighbor, and our kids got out of there quick. I did start looking for an apartment right away and found something about 2 months later. While I was packing, I got a call from entitled mother and I let it go to voicemail. "I hear you're moving. I just wanted you to know if you or any of your kids walk by my house before then, I'm calling the police for harassment. I don't care if it is your son," who was 2 at the time. "And I can't wait to hear what stupid stuff you have to say about this when you call me back." I'm not gonna lie, I was tempted to call back, but didn't. We moved a week later, thankfully. So let's get this straight. This entitled mother called OP and her family an N-word, and then when they get upset about it, she says that they're playing the race card? Lady, you're the one who played the race card by bringing race into this. Our next Reddit post is from Princess Cheetos. Backstory, I have a working pantry, which means I have food that'll last my family up to 3 months. It's food that we eat and use, so I'm constantly restocking and rotating it. I'm not exactly a prepper, but it does come in handy for emergencies. I've been in self-quarantine for a few weeks now due to my compromised immune system. No one outside our family is allowed inside the house, and we don't answer the door if we don't have to. We also have a Ring doorbell, so we can communicate with people without answering the door. I used to coupon to the point that I could have been on the Extreme Couponing show. That's how I built up my food storage quickly. In the past, the neighborhood kids learned quickly that my son had lots of snacks that I was willing to share. In turn, their parents learned I had a very large food storage, which I never wanted to advertise, but oh well. I didn't think it would be a problem at the time. Yeah, I was dumb. I no longer coupon with the same intensity due to my declining health, but I do smaller trips. An extra can or two each grocery order to maintain my food storage. Sorry for the novel. On to the story. Our city's in the first few days of quarantining. Schools and workplaces have been closed, but our grocery stores are still open, albeit wiped out and overwhelmed. Yesterday, the doorbell rang at about 9:30 a.m. I checked the Ring app and saw a neighbor's kid, about 5 years old, standing on my porch. So I pressed the talk button and tell him hi.
Hi,
He said.
I'm here for the food.
Confused, I asked, what food?
Mommy said you have food for me.
He replied. I'm sorry, honey, but I don't. I'm sure your mom has food for you at home.
Okay, bye.
He waved into the camera and left. I brushed it off because the kid was known for making stuff up, so I settled back into bed. Almost a half an hour later, the doorbell rings again, and when I check it, there are 2 kids standing there. One is the kid of my neighbor across the street, the other lives on the street behind me. When I greet them through the Ring app, it's the same story. Their moms told them I had food to give them. I quickly told them no and to go talk to their moms. They said okay and went on their way. While they walked away, I sent off a text to the 3 moms. Your kid stopped by my house saying you told them I have food for them. I don't. Why are you telling them that? Entitled Mother 1 says,
What about all that food in your food storage?
What about it?
You have a lot. You can share.
Entitled Mother 2 says,
You've shared before.
My food storage is enough for my family. If I had anything to spare, I would gladly share it, but I don't. Entitled Mother 3 says,
But you have lots of food.
Again, for my family. The stores are still open. If you need food, you'll have to try your luck there.
Or we could just come over and take your stuff. Yeah, I doubt you could stop us.
All 3 know about my health and mobility issues. Try it, and I'll meet you on my driveway with my shotgun, an angry Rottweiler, and my even angrier husband.
Are you threatening us?
You threatened to steal my property, so I'm just returning the favor. Oh no, you called me a bad word. I think I'm going to cry. I better drown my sadness by eating all of these yummy snacks I have in my food storage, lol. They didn't respond back. But I did hear from one of my other neighbors that Entitled Mother 1 was complaining to anyone that would listen that I'm a mean person for letting her kids go hungry. Several people asked her why she was trying to take food away from an ill person. I have several chronic illnesses as well that have me more or less homebound. When she bulk buys at Costco every 2 weeks. She didn't have an answer for that and stopped complaining about me soon afterwards. She did end up going to the store to buy stuff, but was super pissed because the lines were super long and she was there for about an hour. And then OP posted an update. Wow, my original post really blew up. Thanks to everyone for their advice and concern. I really thought that there wouldn't be more to the story, but there is. For those of you who are wondering, we live in the western region of the United States near the Rocky Mountains. That's all I'm willing to say. Preppers and people with food storage like mine are pretty much the norm where we are. But there are people like the 3 entitled mothers that don't prepare beyond their monthly grocery trips. It's just assumed that everyone here has some sort of food storage, but as a rule, we don't ask or talk about them. After my encounter with the entitled mothers on Friday, I didn't think much of it, but I did tell my husband. He was not amused. In an earlier post, I mentioned that since my health had been declining, my husband has become fiercely protective over me. He wanted to storm over and rip into all 3 of them, but I managed to convince him not to. He did ask for screenshots of the text just in case. I happily sent them to him. Saturday night after I went to bed early, the neighbor who had told me that entitled mother 1 had been complaining about me, we'll call her Nice Neighbor, showed up to our porch with Neighbor Cop and spoke through our screen door to my husband. Nice Neighbor said that she and several other neighbors were concerned when entitled mother 2 had basically admitted to threatening to come and take our food storage. I guess entitled mother 2 was telling people that like it was a funny story or something. Neighbor Cop was there because he co-heads our neighborhood watch and is also the second entitled mother's brother-in-law. I've always gotten the impression that he and entitled mother 2 don't get along. Quick note, we have several police officers as well as firemen that live in our neighborhood. In fact, I have 3 different policemen living on just my street. Neighbor Cop asked hubby if we had proof of the text conversation and hubby sent him a copy. Neighbor Cop thanked him and told him he'd be speaking with his sister-in-law later that night. Hubby thanked them both and they left. This morning, Sunday, Neighbor Cop showed up again. He told hubby that he'd met up with the 3 entitled mothers and their husbands and sternly told them that with the screenshots hubby had given them, he could arrest the 3 of them for harassing and threatening me, and that if anything happens at our house, that they would be the first on their list of people to talk to and or arrest. I don't know if he just told them that to scare them, but he knows the law better than me, so I'll go with it. He also told them that he had informed the other cops that live in the neighborhood and that they, as well as the neighbors that were concerned in the first place, would be watching them and to not be stupid. So that's it. For now. Neighbor Cop told us to call him if we have any problems with anyone, but I don't anticipate anything soon. Neighbor Cop admitted to hubby that all 3 entitled mothers looked terrified after he mentioned being arrested and their husbands were furious at them. Entitled mother 1's husband even asked her, "How could you think it was okay to threaten a sick person?" Entitled mother 2's husband told her she was dumb for threatening someone who owned a shotgun. I'll update if anything else happens. Our next Reddit post is from Kit Kat Faith. Okay, so a little backstory. I used to work at McDonald's when I was a teenager, and I'm also deaf, but I read lips. I developed bacterial meningitis and became fully deaf at the age of 12. I can still speak since I learned to speak before I became deaf, and most of the customers I got there were very understanding, except one. I was working front counter that day as I usually did, so I was basically in charge of inside customers. This was the easiest position for me as I could see the customers and read their lips. A middle-aged lady and her 9 to 10-year-old son walk in and I say, "Hi, welcome to McDonald's," while signing at the same time. She doesn't look up and is looking down at her phone, so I can't see her lips and I can't understand what she's saying, so I explain, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm deaf and I read lips. Can you look up for me?" She rolls her eyes and I clearly see she says, "Why would they let an R word work the front counter?" I'm appalled by her behavior, but just try to pretend like I didn't see it. I smile and say, "What can I get started for you today?" She starts to patronize me by speaking very, very slowly, which, fun fact, actually makes it 1,000 times harder to understand what you're saying. "I want a Diet Coke." Okay, is that all? "And a Happy Meal toy." Now, all of our drinks are $1 no matter the size, but you have to pay for a Happy Meal toy. We don't just give them out for free. I ring her up and she's shocked. She demands to know why I'm discriminating against her son and forcing them to pay for a Happy Meal toy. I really don't want to cause any trouble, and I wish I could say I told her where she could shove it, but I ended up just giving her the toy for free. I thought I had avoided conflict, but oh boy was I wrong. I told her the total was $1.06, and after she paid, I handed her a large cup and motioned for the guy behind her to move forward. She waves a hand in my face and points to the drink cup. "Yes, ma'am?"
"You never got me my drink."
Now, I just thought she didn't see the machines behind her, so I pointed to the drink machine and said, "Oh, there's a drink station behind you where you can fill up your drink." I kid you not, she word for word said,
"That's your job. Do I look like I work for McDonald's?"
My jaw hit the effing floor. I'd never had someone be so rude in my entire life. I ended up telling her that when you come inside, you fill up your own drinks because of sanitary reasons, but when she kept on pushing at me, I ended up just using our drive-thru drink machine to get her the Diet Coke. While I'm making the drink, my coworker taps me on the shoulder, and this is the reason why this has the Entitled Parents tag. I see her son making fun of me to his mom by pretending to sign and just being a general jerk-off. His mom didn't punish him or tell him off. Instead, she encouraged him and started to make fun of me with him. I went to the back and ended up bawling my eyes out. I felt incredibly embarrassed and like I'd made a fool of myself by having a disability. I turned in my 2 weeks notice about a week later and haven't worked in fast food since. To everyone reading this, please be kind to people, especially your fast food workers. It's a tough job, even if you don't have a disability. And if you see people who have disabilities working and trying to make a living, please be patient and help us out by just letting us do our thing and make us feel welcome. Thank you. OP, if you're gonna quit anyway, you should have just taken that drink, dumped it on that entitled mother's head, and walked out the front door. That was rSlash Entitledparents, and if you like this video, then hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.